Hey guys, welcome back to Task and Purpose. I'm your average infantryman, Chris Cappy.
Imagine if you had a rifle that when you fired it, you felt no recoil. In 2018, Russian forces deployed a brand new weapon that was so expensive and so complicated to operate, they reserved it for only their most elite special forces units.
What about me, the average Russian infantryman? Can I have one?
Yeah. No, Spetsnaz only. Its development revealed the strengths and weaknesses of the Soviet Union's old central planning system. This lightweight firearm's unique recoil mitigation design tells us a lot about the type of tactics they plan to use in combat. Strangely, the United States military has zero weapons like this that use this kind of system designed to make it feel like you have almost no recoil when firing. Why is that? So why was it not adopted by the Russian army when they first tested it way back in the 1980s? What went wrong and how did they fix it? This weapon likely first saw action with the Spetsnaz unit's failed air assault of Hostomel airport in the beginning of the Ukraine invasion. We're going to examine the engineering behind the AEK 971 cord rifle and analyze the philosophy behind its tactics on the battlefield.
But first,
Run away! Retreat! 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 The enemy has me completely surrounded. Wait a second, what's that? Is it this episode's sponsor, the Tac Pack?
Thank God for this supply drop, it came just in time.
A TSG T55 tactical combo wrench,
A hat for my dome piece.
a protective cleaning and maintenance mat.
A ton of cool tactical gear and awesome shit in the tac pack that I can't even mention here, but I can say it's for your constitutionally legal tools.
Now the enemy stands no chance against me.
Tac Pack is a monthly subscription box that delivers tactical and EDC gear directly to your face each month.
Why am I making a noise with my mouth?
The way it works is every month the team over at TacPack puts together a box of different items that they know that you guys would like in the military community. The kind of products that you can expect to be in here are going to be SOG, mechanics, 511, Magpul, Mission First, all the stuff that you guys love. That means there's going to be mag carriers, cleaning kits, medical gear in here. If you click our link, then in the first month you'll receive a $50 mystery item. So if you guys are looking for a way to support the channel, click the link in the description, use our code Task and Purpose, and get your Tac Pack today.
The AEK 971 traces its roots all the way back to the Cold War in the 1980s, when the Soviet Union's Ministry of Armament was in charge of designing new ammo and small arms. According to this leaked CIA document that I definitely should not have access to, the Soviet Ministry of Armament hid their true production size by having civilian manufacturing plants that doubled as military ones. They reported directly to the Soviet Council of Ministers, which was like this central planning committee made up of 7 chairmen. This council of centralized power made practically all the decisions for Russia, including defense and small arms development.
hey average Russian citizens, how do you feel about this? Now that's the look of natural clapping.
Soviet military analysts convinced this group that their current primary weapon, the AK-74, had accuracy problems compared to the Americans' M16. The Council of Ministers issued an order for the research and development of Project Abakan. Project Abakan was named after a somewhat unremarkable river located in Russia in the Kalashnikov region, and on August 27, 1981, this project would be the birth of the AEK 971 rifle. It was meant to end in the development of a new high-performance advanced weapon that would be better than the United States M16. The trial took place over a period of 10 years, from 1980 to 1994, and it was meant to rival the United States' own advanced combat rifle program, which was happening at the same exact time.
During this program, the US Army was toying around with some of the exact same ideas about recoil mitigation and delayed impulse. The US military ended up passing on it because they found it was unreliable and too expensive.
The Soviet Council of Ministers mandated that the weapon would need to have a required operational capability that was 1.5 to 2 times more effective. This meant it had to be more accurate and deliver more rounds on target within 300 meters compared to their primary AK-74. If the project didn't achieve those results, it wouldn't be worth the money and resources required to switch weapons. The Soviet Union assigned all of their most famous top defense engineers to compete against each other, including Igor Stechin, famous for the pistol by the same name, and the son of Kalashnikov, the inventor of the AK-47. These designers were placed under the unified control of the Central Research Institute of Precision Engineering, a group that still exists today. The Soviet Union continued to run everything under this kind of central planning system. No idea was too crazy for Project Abakan, no thought too insane. For instance, one weapon submitted was the AO-63, which was simply an AK rifle with two barrels welded side by side, a double-barreled AK. And while that did increase the rate of fire, it made the weapon unwieldy, and it was the first idea that was scrapped from Project Abakan. It took 3 years to 1983 for them to develop 8 separate weapons, including the AEK-971, which was designed by Sergei Kasharov of the Kovrov mechanical plant. The company was set up in 1916 in Kovrov, Russia, and has been manufacturing Russian small arms ever since. The AEK looks similar to your standard AK rifle, but with some advanced trickery occurring on the inside. It's a long-stroke gas-operated select-fire rifle, capable of semi-auto 3-round burst, or full auto. The AEK-971 used a unique balanced automatic recoil system, which shifted the mass towards the muzzle of the rifle as the bolt and carrier recoiled backwards. This counterweight would negate the felt recoil, which resulted in more accurate auto fire. This is done by a simple gear that moves the bar inside the gas tube. This recoil mitigation system was unlike anything seen on Western weapons. It was 7.3 pounds, a full pound lighter than the AK-74 and the AN-94. The AEK was found to be 20% more accurate during full send fire than the Soviet Union's primary weapon of the time, the AK-74. It has a max effective firing range of 500 meters and shoots the 545 39mm cartridge at approximately 900 rounds per minute. This version had a 16.54-inch barrel, about the same as the AK-74. But the original early prototype had an insanely high increased firing rate of 1,500 rounds per minute, which is over twice the rate of fire for the AK-74. That's 25% faster than most belt-fed weapons. It was way too fast, and could have been part of the reason as to why the weapon wasn't originally adopted. So I found this actual report from the Project Abakan tests, and I translated it using Google Translate. Testing included shooting in the dust, shooting in extreme temperature, using high elevations, and inducing stoppages. But interestingly, they mainly tested groupings during automatic fire, which was really the whole point of the trials. You can tell throughout the report they keep harping back on this one concept, effective auto fire. The Soviet Union believed designing a weapon with accurate automatic fire would be the most important variable for winning future small arms engagements. But what they didn't know was that the US military at the same time was beginning to think the exact opposite. Troops in Vietnam with little fire discipline training tended to fire off entire magazines in full auto without hitting anything. Reportedly, anywhere from 50,000 to 200,000 rounds of small arms ammunition was fired in order to get one enemy KIA. This is why the US military removed full auto from the M16 and gave it a burst feature to help encourage accurate, well-placed shots. Eventually, they narrowed down the competition to 2 rifle designs, the AEK-971 and the AN-94. The AEK only has 2 extra moving parts in the system, which means it's not as complex as the AN-94. Plus, it has the added benefit of being very controllable in full auto. While the AN-94 is flawless in 2-round burst mode, the AEK-971 is considered to be more controllable in longer bursts and full send mode. The only price information I could find about the platforms was that the AEK cost $814, it's a full $200 cheaper than the AN-94 to produce. But when the two were tested again in November of 1984, the AEK lost out to the AN-94. I can't help but think the Soviet Union's obsession with fixing the one perceived design flaw of low accuracy on the AK is why they chose the AN-94, even though it was more expensive and it was more complicated. The weapon that won and was supposed to replace the AK-74 ended up serving in very limited service in the Russian military because budget constraints delayed its full adoption. By the time Project Abakan ended in 1994 with the adoption of the AN-94, small arms technology was about to change drastically. With the rise of affordable scopes and optics unlike anything anyone could have anticipated, this made the whole theory behind the usefulness of the AEK-971 a little bit less effective. Full auto became less useful compared to using a 4x ACOG scope and an accurate single shot. But that didn't mean that we'd seen the last of this weapon. Even though the AEK-971 lost the Abacan trials, it did get further development as the rifle was made simpler. Early on, the AEK-971 was given to a very small amount of naval infantry, and it's said to have been combat proven in Chechnya, especially the Second Chechen War. I could only find 2 photos that corroborate this though. I feel stupid for asking this, but what is that furry white hat that the soldier's operating with there? Is that some kind of camouflage to blend in with sheep? Okay, it's actually the traditional papka hat seen there. It's, in all honesty, it has a very long history in the Russian military where it was adopted, then canceled after the Russian Revolution of 1917, then reinstated, nixed again before they put it back into service in 2005. It reminds me of the AEK-971's long and troubled history. One of the ways to recognize it is that circular handguard rail in the front. Small batches of the rifles were allegedly produced at the Khabarov machine building plant until 2006 and given to the police and some units in the Ministry of Justice of the Russian Federation. This rifle stayed out of sight for a long time. In 2006, production was moved to the Devrevi Khabarov plant, ZID, but soon production ceased due to the lack of orders, and then later on all building of the new rifles were ended as costs were too high to restart manufacturing. On December 23, 2014, the Russian army announced they were reviving the rifle with a new name. The weapon received a redesign and an official GRU designation, the Cord 6P67. It had officially passed the new ratnik trials. Unlike the Abacan trials, the weapon competed against the AK-12 this time. In 2018, the ratnik trials recommended both rifles be adopted for service, but that the AK-12 should be used by regular infantry and the Cord 6P67 AEK should be given to Special Forces Spetsnaz only. This also included airborne units, border patrol, and National Guard elements. The reason given for this was because the weapon was more complicated and expensive, so it couldn't be fielded in large numbers. The Cord 6P67 had been given upgrades since the 1980s version to help with its reliability. It was also given a monolithic upper receiver to make production cheaper, and it has the Picatinny rail system for easily mounting scopes onto the weapon. The main tactic that Russia uses with this weapon is for their airborne air assault soldiers who are parachuting in or who are being dropped in by helicopter. These Spetsnaz troops are going to be getting into close range, full auto combat. The fire control system was changed and a collapsible buttstock was added, which makes the rear of the rifle assembly a lot more similar to an H&K MP5. The Cord also has a 2-round burst feature, and the first orders were received in mid-2020 and was only for about 500 rifles compared to the over 100,000 of the AK-12 that was ordered. Around April 2020, 2 months after the invasion of Ukraine, pictures circulated claiming to have been taken by a Russian VDV airborne soldier. It showed he was equipped with this rare rifle. It had a suppressor and a Valde 1P87 optic, which is designed for close range, fast acquisition of targets. Translating the original poster's Russian text, we learned that the soldier claims that his own job was just to deliver equipment to Russian forces on the border area and says that he was not deployed to Ukraine. The AEK-971 is the product of a top-down solution directed by a committee with a centralized power that demanded a weapon twice as good as the original. It was adopted to fit an incredibly small niche, something that would likely not happen in Western militaries. Budget problems and changing technology meant that the weapon would never see widespread adoption. Over the past 40 years, since it was first streamed up, the rise of optics and scopes have shifted small arms development away from close quarters automatic weapons to longer range precision rifles with single fire shooting. But that doesn't change the fact that it has almost no felt recoil, great accuracy, and it makes it an outstanding weapon for anyone who can afford it or anyone who could find it.